All right. And in person, not on the line, we have Mr. Josh Wells, stand-up comic, good friend of mine. Josh, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? I'm Josh Wells. I'm a comic from North Bergen, New Jersey. I host an open mic in Jersey City at this place called The Dopeness on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Ain't Funny.
Josh Ain't Funny. Do you have a Tumblr or no? I forgot.
I do have a Tumblr. It's also Josh Ain't Funny.
All right, so we have a comedian named Josh Ain't Funny. Yeah, guys, currently, I don't know when you're going to hear this, but I think Amazon has deals on The Dopeness. So it's like, put in some money, get like extra stuff free. So yeah, do the Amazon thing. Visit Josh at The Dopeness at Jersey City. Google him, people, or Bing, or XGeeves, whatever you guys use. So let's get into it. Being a stand-up comic, how does it bother you when people go, oh hey, this is Josh, he's the funny guy?
Yeah, I mean it happens a lot. People will introduce you as a comic, and it's like you cringe immediately, only because you're already conditioned to get. There's only so many responses you're gonna get from people. The first one, the most popular one, is probably "Tell me a joke."
Yeah.
Which is the worst thing you can ask a comic, because it's just the whole joke-telling format for stand-up comics is so dependent on that crowd atmosphere. The comic on a stage, on a microphone, you need that. You can't just do one of your bits for one person in a bar somewhere. It's just not going to work. And the other thing is, like, people want to get real nerdy with the comedy. They start asking you about all these other comics, and it's like, just because I do stand-up comedy, it doesn't make me I don't have like this encyclopedic knowledge on stand-up comedy. I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of stand-up comics, but I'm not going to be. Don't be surprised if I don't know who your favorite comic is. It happens.
Yeah, because I remember, for me personally, years ago, what happened was our friend Matthew introduced me to these two girls. It's like, oh hey, this is Diego. He's the funny guy. Actually, you did that to me once too. We'll get into that later. And I go to the girls, like, hi girls, how are you? And then I walk away, and I hear them whispering, he wasn't that funny.
It's great because, like, I was watching, I don't know if you've seen the I Am Chris Farley special on Spike TV. I was just watching it yesterday, actually.
Oh, it came out?
Yeah, and and they were talking about these bits he would do for people when he would first meet them, and, like, just stupid stuff, but I'm just like, man, that's the stuff I need to start doing for first impressions. Like, a thing he was famous for is, as if you were walking towards him, he'd get down on the ground immediately, start doing push-ups, and he'd be like, 198, 199. I was like, that's a great bit,
That's mad random. So let's get into the karaoke bar. What was it called that we used to go to years ago?
We used to go to a place called Romano's in North Bergen, New Jersey. We're recording this right around the corner from the place, pretty much. It was just a dive filled with 40-somethings.
Yeah, they look like old bikers.
Yeah.
There was a woman called Miss Mullet, we called her.
Miss Mullet. And it's just like the beer was really cheap. I remember they had like cheap pitchers. We would just give them $5 and they'd just give us a pitcher full of beer, and we would just get hammered on those. And
start singing karaoke.
Yeah.
I used to pick the worst songs possible to, like, ruin the mood.
The first song I've ever heard you do karaoke was "It's Raining Men."
And, everybody knows that's my song.
And it kind of lit up the room. I think we all lit up the room, because everybody we went with, like, we were in the same age group, and at that time we were all probably like an average age of 21. And so here we are, like, these kids who still, like, have hope in life and dreams and things like that, and we're just, we're taking over this bar that's just populated with people that just, they're just soaking their life into a mug of beer at that point.
Yeah.
And we were just so full of energy. I felt like we had such a good time with it in such an odd location.
Yeah, it was. Like, we didn't match the crowd, but it didn't matter. The beer was cheap, and we did whatever. Yeah, but one time with Miss Mullet, she was drunk and depressed. You're like, my friend Diego, he'll cheer you up. I wanted to stab you that day.
I was, I'm very bad socially at everything, really. Knowing how my mind works, I probably thought that was the only way I could get out of talking to her. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bury somebody else in this. I don't care who it is. It's going to be the closest person to me.
There I was like, Josh, are you okay? Yeah, there we go, buddy.
So I apologize. But, I mean, I went there a lot, Romano's, because at 21, all I wanted to do was drink in bars. And since it was right by where I lived, I was there all the time. So I had to put up a Miss Mullet all the time. So, I mean, you took a bullet honorably, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Speaking of taking bullets, do you remember what happened to us years ago at NJIT? Was it NJIT?
NGIT, yeah. My brother Phil Wells, at the Phil Wells on Twitter. I'll plug my brother while we're at it. He does improv in New York City. He was in a fraternity when he used to go to NGIT, which was in Newark, by the way, which is crazy. It was like you go to frat row, and it would just be like all these frat houses in the middle of like a really scary part of Newark. But that's a whole side detail. But yeah, so my brother Phil would always invite me to these parties that his frat would throw. And we went to a Halloween party one year, and Diego was there. It was we rolled deep. We had, I want to say we had like 10 people, 2 cars.
We did, and this was the year that Britney Spears was big, so like the sorority were all dressed up like Catholic schoolgirls or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was good times.
Yeah, and they had this tradition on my brother's frat where at the end of the party, the established members of the frat would get into a pumpkin fight with all the pledges of the fraternity. What they would do is they would collect. They would actually steal pumpkins in other towns, like the whole month of October.
Yeah.
And I think my cat's about to puke in front of Diego.
Yes, she is.
I'm kind of ashamed.
No, my cat does it all the time. That's why I hate my cat.
Anyways, so they had all these pumpkins, and they would just have this big fight, and it was really just a way for like the established members of the frat to, bully the pledges. So we have a friend Chet that was with us, and Chet wanted to get involved in the pumpkin fight. Now here's the thing. Frat rules, it was just for the fraternity boys, that's it. Like if you were a guest there, you weren't supposed to join in on a fight. But Chet is a wild dude, he's like a loose cannon. Like you can bring him anywhere, you don't know what he's going to get into. So he decides that he's going to take the side of the underdogs, and he's going to start throwing pumpkins with the pledges. And Chet was really good at it, and you could tell that like
he might hit someone in the face.
Yeah, he did something to piss somebody off because they took notice. They were like, "Who's this guy? He's really good, and he's sticking up for the pledges." And it got contentious. Like they got in his face. I think they wanted to kick him out, and so we're all there. We're all fueled on alcohol and beer muscles. So like Chet's friends, us, we're backing him up. The frat brothers are backing the frat guys up, and next thing you know, it just turns into a big skirmish. I can't even tell you who threw the first fist. I have no idea, but it was like there was just like 20 people fighting each other out of nowhere, and you just see bodies rolling on the floor and on couches and things, and it was wild. I actually wasn't in a fight, by the way.
You were not.
Well, I felt because our brother was in a fraternity, I had no business being in a fight. Like I didn't really know what side to be on.
You should have done what Kevin and I did.
So what did you and Kevin do?
All right, so while the shenanigans is happening, Kevin and I, because this was happening in the basement, and I remember going, "Oh, this is getting kind of wild. Let me go upstairs." And all these sorority girls are dressed up like Britney Spears, whatever. Both Kevin and I were hitting on this one chick. She looked like she was dressed like a rockabilly type girl. So Kevin and I were both like competing for her affection. So when the fight breaks out, I don't know why, we just looked at each other. And we just put each other in a headlock, and we just like walked out the door.
It's genius. That's genius.
so we fake fought all the way out.
That's awesome. That was the best way out of it. I kind of don't remember how I think I just stayed away from it, and that was it. And one thing led to another, and they kicked us out. I think I was given a pass because I was Phil's brother, but I obviously left with you guys because I was in the cars, and. Yeah, that was it, man. That was the night we showed up at a frat party and fought with the fraternity, that owned the house. It was like something you'd see like in an 80s movie or something.
Yeah, man, your brother probably had a lot of explaining to do.
I'm sure. I mean, we would eventually go back to the party, go back to the frat house for another party, maybe like 6 months down the road. Phil brokered peace somehow, and they let us back in.
Oh man, good times.
Yeah.
So your brother, so you do stand up and your brother does improv. That's like two different like fields, right? Like
right.
It's two different like talents that most people don't understand. They think like, oh, if you could do improv, you could do stand up. If you could do stand up, you could do improv. But it's just like, have you tried the improv? Or not?
I have. I took a few classes at UCB Theater, Upright Citizen Brigade Theater in New York. Maybe I want to say like, man, time flies. Probably 8 years ago. I took 3 classes. I wanted to be into it, but I just wasn't. My heart wasn't there. because I had started going to a lot of improv shows because of my brother, and I was like, this looks like so much fun, and I want to get into this.
Yeah.
And you know, and like there's all these people I idolize, like Chris Farley, Bill Murray, Belushi, Aykroyd, you know, on, and they all have that improv background. So I was always like, man, that's what I want to do, and it just didn't work for me, so I stopped doing it. But it's fun. I met a lot of people that way. Had a lot of fun. Did a lot of extracurricular drinking with some of the people I met. That's the great thing about comedy. Like, you meet people who just love to go out and have a good time.
That's cool. Yeah, who would have thought comedians like having fun?
Yeah.
Speaking of stand-up, do you have any like stand-up stories? I know you got the one at that Spanish club.
Well, yeah, we could talk about the Latin Lounge. The Latin Lounge, you know what that was funny? Is like the Latin Lounge show was not even my worst show, but real quick, the Latin Lounge show was just this. I go in there, and my friend who's hosting the show and who got me there, he's like, yeah, come, I do the show twice a month there, it'll be great. I was like, all right, cool. I go in, and first off, I'm like the only white dude there, like it's just me, and that's it. Like, I almost felt like the DJ was gonna like stop the record when I walked in. Yeah, and they're playing bachata or whatever, just they're playing all this Spanish dance music before the comedy show while we're waiting for it to start, and people are dancing and drinking and having a good time, and like I'm just in the corner thinking like, why the fuck would they want a comedy show? Like they're already having a better time than we could ever provide them. But whatever, it was what it was. My friend starts the show, and it felt like an awkward transition from turning the music off to a comedy show. And a couple comics would go up before me. They did okay, but then I got up there, and it was just silence. Just they weren't even mean to me. Like, it was just a crowded bar looking at me, just looking for like 7 minutes. And I remember getting off, like, there's things people say to comics that lets them know they did a bad job. Like, people will come up to me and be like, it's all right, man, you'll get them next time. And it's like, oof, Yeah. Or when a host of a comedy show, like, after you go and they say something like, oh, comedy's hard, this is a really hard thing to do, that's when oh, I did really bad. Like, it's not supposed to look hard, it's supposed to look easy. So that was it was a humbling experience. Plus, like, it was in Jersey City, and I have a lot of friends in Jersey City, and a lot of them showed up. So I had to, like, bomb in front of a bunch of my friends.
Yeah.
I have a friend, actually, that friend Kevin, that you did the fake headlock with, who he told me, he's like, I saw you bomb once, and he said, I'm never going to come watch you again. He's like, because it just felt so awkward to be in the crowd. He's like, I'm rooting for you, but then when you're bombing, it's like I'm bombing, and I'm like, oh, I'm so, like, I felt his pain, watching me be bad at this. I thought that was really honest. That was some honest feedback from a good friend. But really, I'd like to talk about the worst comedy show I ever did, man.
All right, go ahead.
You want me to hold this or
no?
Oh, okay, all right. All right. Anyways,
he's talking about my junk.
The junk, yes. We're holding. It's getting interesting in here. So I went to this show in Coney Island. In the winter, also, like, there's nothing going on in Coney Island in the winter, and it's like an hour-long subway ride from Port Authority, so it's just a big pain to get there and get back as is. And I get there, and it's a Russian biker bar, and there's like, it looked like the Russian Hells Angels were having Thanksgiving at this place. They had all the tables lined up next to each other in a row, almost like the Last Supper style, and they're all sitting around it. Yeah. And, like, there's a comedy stage set up, but it's like, it didn't even exist to them, right? The host gets up, and they just paid him no attention, and it's just comic after comic. They are just ignoring everybody, just having their Russian biker Thanksgiving feast or whatever it was. I get up there with no expectations at this point, because I've seen a couple people, like, comics are just coming off and being like, that was the worst thing ever. So I get up there, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm just getting no reactions. Nobody's looking at me. No one's making eye contact. And then, all of a sudden, they decide, the table decides as a group that they're going to get up and they're going to do a salute with a shot of some sort of vodka. Yeah. And one of the guys comes up to me. It felt like the head guy or something. He comes up to me while I'm on the microphone, mid-sentence. He's like, hey, he puts the hand on top of the mic. He's like, hey, you're going to need to stop that for, like, the next 3 minutes, because we're about to do a cheers, and we can't hear ourselves while you're talking.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I was like, oh my God. And like, so I'm looking at the host of the show. I was like, what do I do here? And so I just stood there for 3 minutes and I just watched him do this cheers. And once it was done, I tried to transition it back into my comedy. It just wasn't happening. It was, they just sat down and ignored me, and they were just having a family conversation, and that was it. I did my time and I left, and it was the most miserable subway ride back. It was an hour-long subway ride, me thinking about what am I doing with my life right now. This is...
But I'd have been thinking like, damn, I can't believe I'm alive. First of all, it's a...
Well, yeah, that too. Like, I'm surprised that they didn't stab any of the comics at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the Russians. They're not known for comedy. I mean, the most we got is Yakov Smirnoff, and I don't even know if he's really Russian.
Right, yeah, I think, he's just putting us on with that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I think he's never broken kayfabe in 30 years.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So, and you did on either nights, on the Russian night or at the Latin Lounge, did you adjust your comedy at all, or did you just do your thing?
I didn't. This is probably like a few years back. So now, like where I'm at now, I would definitely adjust my set. Like I like to show up to a venue a little early just to feel the vibe of the place, and I'll definitely make adjustments if I feel like the environment is not going to like what I came planned with in the first place.
Yeah.
Then I wasn't back then. That kind of wasn't my thing. I was more gun ho. Like all my material is good and will work everywhere always. And the Latin Lounge was kind of like this very humbling experience where it's like, no, it won't. It's like you really need to step back and rethink sometimes. But the Russian Thanksgiving set, I could have done anything. I could have been the funniest guy in the world, and they would have not stopped.
Yeah, I would have just been doing the alphabet. I would have just looked at whoever booked you. I would have just looked at them the entire night. A, B, C, D, E. I would have gone all the way through. Just look at them hardcore. Oh man. So yeah, when's your next gig?
See, I have to look at my calendar because I don't even know.
As he's looking up his calendar, let us remind you that that This Is Happening podcast is brought to you by Who Loves the 90s. Doctor Who themed 90s party at Hell's Kitchen Lounge, 150 Lafayette Street, Newark, New Jersey. Also that night, some guy's going to try to break a fire record for the Guinness Book of World Records or some shit, I don't know. But it's going to be a good time, so come out, dance, watch some guy play with fire, no cover, good times.
A fire record? What's like this?
I have no idea. Like, I think he's going to like put like something in his mouth like on fire and see how long he could keep his tongue on fire. I don't even know, man. I mean, he's really cool. Like, I've seen him perform a few times. But he's gonna now he set his sight on some record, and now he wants to break it.
His name isn't Mars Omega by any chance, is it?
I want to say something Spitfire.
Oh, okay.
Like
you figure there's only so many like fire guys roaming around. Like once you see one of them, you're like, that's probably the same guy everybody else sees.
No, there's it's like a thing for everybody nowadays.
It's like stand-up comedy, right? Like I remember when I first got into stand-up, I was like, not a lot of people are doing this. This should be easy. And then like you started doing it, like no, there's like thousands of people just in New York City doing stand-up comedy right now. It's obscene.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends. Same as Armando. Yeah, Armando, I'm putting you on the spot. You bombed and it was terrible.
Happens to everybody.
No, it was bad. So, but what I really felt bad for him though is that, the clubs have 2 drink minimum, whatever, and all of us, a bunch of us went, and we're cheapskates. But so I just had Coca-Cola. That's it, because at the time I wasn't drinking back then. So let me get a Coca-Cola, and everyone, they all try to get the cheapest thing possible. So during his sets, when everybody got the bill. And it was a wave from behind me. What the fuck? What the fuck? And then when it got to me, I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, $13 for 2 Cokes?
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. It was like something obscene, and this had to happen during his set.
Well, 2 things about that. 2 notes about that. One, there is no cheap way out of a comedy club. Like, if you go into a real, authentic, like, comedy club, especially in New York City, it's like you can't walk out of there without spending, I think it's a $16, $17. Like, every place has this, like, non-alcoholic special where it's like 2 drinks and maybe some nachos or something. It's like $17. It's obnoxious. Also, your friend Armando got the worst spot of the night. They call that the check spot. It's usually the comic before the last comic.
Yeah, it should have been the next guy. Armando is terrible. It should have been the next guy, because the next guy didn't even speak English.
Right.
He was Chinese. He's like, I walked through the park, and he was just stuck. Like, you can see him. Like, maybe it would have been funny in Chinese, but he was like struggling to translate.
Right.
And we're all like, come on, buddy. You can say it. You can say whatever it is you're saying.
Yeah, that's awful. But yeah, the check spot is like, it's famously like the least popular spot that comics want to do in a show lineup because of that, because they're laying the checks down.
Yeah.
People want to talk to the waitress, or they're messing with their money, or they're outraged at their, what was it, probably a $6 Coca-Cola charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Armando had the deck stacked against him.
Yeah, he was doing a bit about Ajax commercials in different languages or something in different companies. Like in Egypt, Ajax goes like this, and he's like, oh, la, 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 la. I'm like, no, dude, no, what are you doing? You're killing me.
Well, at least it wasn't a Tinder joke.
Huh?
At least it wasn't a Tinder joke.
Well, this was like decades ago before Tinder. And actually, in the last episode, I told a Tinder joke. Actually, I didn't tell a Tinder joke. I told a Tinder story, which I'll tell you off air because I don't want to repeat stories on.
Okay.
So download the last episode, damn you people. So yeah, I think we're getting ready to wind down. Do you have any other tales you want to tell, Josh?
I mean, there's probably like a million stories I could think of, but then when you ask me, you got any other stories, it all goes blank.
Yeah, that always happens. That's kind of like putting you on a spot. Like, oh, you're a comic, and then there's like the pause, and the pause is when the person's looking at you when they find out you're a comic. They're like, I dare you to make me laugh.
Yeah, you know what's like aggravating. It's like when we started this off in the conversation, you were like, when a comic is being introduced to other people, like, oh, he's a comic, and people are like, oh, tell me a joke, or people expect you to be funny, and it's like, so comics get really pissed off, and they're like, oh, we don't want those expectations thrown on us in social situations. But on the other hand, there's like a certain vanity in stand-up comedy where it's like, if you notice, like, you're just hanging out with a group of friends, and you have another friend who's not a comic, but he's killing the room with the story. Yeah. If you're hanging out with Diego and he's killing the mullet lady at Romano's, you get jealous. You're like, no, I want that attention. I want those laughs. I want that validation.
That should be me.
So, moral of the story, stand-up comics will never be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I like in the prefix to this, I was like, next week we'll have stand-up comic Josh Wells. It's either going to be really funny or really depressing.
I mean, yeah, it's like I'm trying so hard not to be depressing because I mean, comedy just like before I did say that comedians love to have fun, but we also love to hate ourselves and hate life and everything about it. So it's a very manic experience.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just like, they always, for years, it's always been, what's the scariest thing to be? Being talking in front of a crowd or deaf, and it's always like talking in front of a crowd, and then it's not even talking in front of a crowd. It's like now it's like you're up there, like, all right, people, you got 7 minutes to judge me.
Right? Yeah, and it's the only form of like performance that's like so judgmental. It's like it's basic, it's simple. You have to make the crowd laugh. But there's nothing else that's quite like music isn't like that. Like I've gone to poetry slams to perform comedy, and poetry's not like you could be a mediocre musician or a mediocre poet, and like everyone will listen to you, and everyone will clap when you're done, and it's like no one's ever heckling the mediocre guy at the acoustic night at your local bar or whatever, and it's just it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I've done a few accidental hecklings. Like, at Stevens College, they had a comedy night once, and this one lady, she's performing, and I kind of ruined her bit, like, because I thought I was just talking to my friend Oscar, but she could hear me, and she's like talking about the movie Pretty Woman. She's like, how unrealistic is Pretty Woman? When blah blah blah. She starts describing. She's like, how's a rich millionaire gonna fall in love with a prostitute? And I go, it happened to me, and she was just like. My joke is she gonna go like she just froze. She's just like, oh, I guess
it's tough, but you have to deal with, like, for like 4 or 5 years in comedy, I just was convinced that I didn't have to acknowledge hecklers because hecklers were out of line, and they, there should be a certain respect for the performer while he's performing. But now I've come to the realization that you can't stop heckling. It's going to happen. I don't promote it. I don't think you should do it, but comics have to always constantly be kind of aware and ready for it, and maybe load up a few lines in your head of what you're going to shoot back at people when they start stepping on your punchlines and whatnot. Crowds love when you handle a heckler well. It's the most, even though you don't want to be heckled, handling a heckler successfully and getting a big laugh is the most rewarding feeling on stage. So
it gets a huge pop.
Yeah,
from the audience.
Yeah, because they know it's like, this is special. It wasn't supposed to be like this. This is never going to happen again. It's a shared experience between everyone in that room, and that's it. And it's kind of a powerful thing when it happens. So Yeah, I don't promote heckling, but I promote stomping a heckler out if you can.
All right, guys. And on that note, we're gonna wrap this bad boy up one more time. This Josh Ain't Funny on the Twitter.
Josh Ain't Funny. Follow me, please.
And Josh Ain't Funny on Tumblr. Like I said, Google it, Bing it, Axe Jeeves it. Whoever's gonna be our sponsor from the search engine category, do that. And all right, so thanks, Josh, for coming out.
Thanks, Diego. This is awesome, man.
Good times. So let me just insert my catchphrase here and.